Well, the nation's small businesses could get a major financial boost. The Obama administration wants to give the struggling sector access to some of those remaining TARP funds. Fox Business' Rich Edson has much more from our Washington, D.C. bureau and the very latest in regards to this. Good morning, Rich.
Good morning and welcome back, Alexis. You know, from municipal bonds to housing, lawmakers and the administration have been looking at ways to use TARP money to help different segments of the economy. The latest, small businesses. Treasury officials are discussing a TARP program possibly to invest government money in small businesses. An administration official says Treasury is in the early stages of discussions and has made no specific decisions on that matter. The TARP has about $127 billion in lending authority right now. More than $70 billion of that comes from TARP investments banks have repaid the government. Senate Republicans and the Treasury Secretary are fighting over where that repayment money goes. Geithner says when the money comes in, he can loan it right back out if he wants to. In a letter responding to Senator Judd Gregg, Geithner writes, "We believe that it is critical that Treasury maintain the full flexibility provided by the Emergency Economic Stabilization Act to strengthen our financial system, promote the flow of credit, and permit a rapid response to unforeseen economic threats." The Treasury Secretary says he can extend the TARP authority to invest $700 billion in the economy until October of 2010. Now, the stimulus plan has already committed nearly $730 million to Small Business Administration loans. The stimulus also features a $15 billion program to help the secondary markets for small businesses. That's by buying SBA-backed loans. That program is still waiting to officially launch. Alexis, back to you.
All right, Rich, thank you very much. Well, small businesses may need those funds given the condition of CIT Group, one of the small businesses' largest lenders in the country. This is something Robert just talked about. Now, CIT officials spent the weekend with government officials trying to hash out a plan that would help calm markets and convince customers and investors that it can work its way out of a deepening liquidity crunch. Now, this after hiring bankruptcy specialists Skadden Arps, Slate, Meagher, and Flum. This morning, there is concern that some of the nearly 1 million small and mid-sized businesses that are clients of CIT may rush to withdraw funds or try to draw down on those credit lines. It's looking grim. For more on the future of CIT, Lloyd Chapman is the president of the American Small Business League, and Jordan Kimmel is a market strategist with the National Securities Corporation. Good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for being here. Lloyd, let me start with you. How crucial is the potential failure of CIT, and how many small businesses might it affect across this country?
Well, CIT has been the #1 SBA 7A lender for 9 consecutive years. They're the top lender to women, minorities, and veterans for 6 consecutive years. So a failure by CIT would be catastrophic, and I don't think the government should allow them to fail. They're a good institution. They're well run, and I think it would be devastating if something were to happen to CIT. They're irreplaceable, I think.
Jordan?
Well, I don't think I agree with that at all. I think what you have to realize is that institutions do come and go. Now, this is a 100-year-old company, and it's a huge company in terms of lending. But the fact is, this is what was said when Drexel Burnham failed a decade ago, more than a decade ago, when the economy was much smaller. So the fact is, I just wrote a book on this. We tend to focus on those companies that are failing and attracting the bad news. You'll find Blackstone, you'll find somebody else to take that void, and the reality is that CIT's been a failure for over a year. The handwriting's been on the wall already. This is a $1 stock, and again, this is the end of the story.
Okay, but I would assume, Jordan, that's the perspective of a share owner or investor. That's not the perspective of the 1 million small businesses who have revolving lines of credit with CIT, who need those funds to survive at a time when access to liquidity and lending is null and void.
Well, Alexis, you're right. This is not a valuation bear market we've been experiencing. This is a liquidity crisis. And the liquidity crisis has stemmed from the big guys all the way down. CIT, though, has been a casualty for a while. I'm not sure they've been in a position to really lend a lot of money. And, in fact, some of their biggest customers have a lot more money than they have. So the small guy is what's really you have to look out for them. I think the Obama administration saying, let's use the TARP money for them, I think that's a good idea. Someone will fill CIT's void. This is not the end of the country. This is not a time to run out and panic about CIT, frankly.
You know, it's interesting, Lloyd. I was on vacation last week, and the minute I saw the White House talk about the possibility of allowing small businesses access to TARP funds, I said, there's something brewing behind the scenes, and you knew it was going to be something big. Clearly, they are worried about the risk here to small businesses, and frankly, in my opinion, they've not done enough for small businesses. What if they do open the door to TARP? Does that alleviate some of the concern here about this company filing for bankruptcy?
If President Obama were to take every dime of the remaining TARP funds that are available that have not been allocated, which I believe is $127 billion, that would mean that the small businesses in America that are responsible for 50% of the GDP and 95% of all new jobs would have gotten 5% of all the economic recovery funds. That's ridiculous. Half the GDP, 95% of all new jobs, and if they gave them 100% of the unallocated funds. So the amount of money that's been given small businesses, I would say, is statistically insignificant, and it needs to go up dramatically.
So Lloyd, here's a classic example. $2.3 billion given in TARP funds to CIT. The FDIC, Sheila Bair, says, I'm not so comfortable about backstopping their debt. They've been downgraded to junk status. So, okay, here's an example of perhaps we need to let this company fail. But what are we doing about all those small businesses in this country that represent 50% of the GDP? We haven't done much thus far.
Well, you know, here's the way I look at it. The purpose of the economic stimulus plan is to try to rescue the economy. And again, small businesses are responsible for 95% of the new jobs. CIT is the number one SBA 7A lender. We can't let them fail. They don't need that much money, quite frankly. They got $2.3 billion. What was it? JP Morgan got $25 billion. So it wouldn't take that much to save them. And I think that we definitely should.
Jordan, is that a good idea? I mean, I understand they have almost $11 billion in debt due between now and the end of the first quarter of 2010. Are we saving the week?
Well, I think the whole idea is not to try to throw bad money after good money. And the reality is CIT is just really not going to survive. And again, someone else is going to fill that void. I really agree you have to support the small businesses. They are the engine of the economy. Remember, though, a company that's surviving on a revolving line of credit is not the kind of company that you're looking for anyway.
Okay, but who fills the void?
Well, it will be Blackstone. It will be a series of other financial companies. Hopefully, it's not the government. Again, what you see is that if I was receiving money from CIT, I would have been looking for alternative sources for quarters already. I wouldn't be waiting for this moment for when they finally hire a bankruptcy attorney. So when you say that they're trying to calm the fears, when you go ahead and hire the bankruptcy attorney already, you're admitting the fact that they're not going to survive.
The only thing, though, that I would disagree with you, Jordan, on the whole concept of the revolving lines of credit is that, you know, businesses, their receivables versus their payables, they also face they oftentimes face a deficit in the middle. Sometimes it's 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, and they've got to fund those periods when they're getting payment back. They need those lines of credit. And so far, it doesn't look like the other commercial banks out there are stepping up to the plate as aggressively as they need to.
Well, you know, again, it's a liquidity crisis, and I do understand, and I'm not callous, and everyone has shortfalls, and we all need help from time to time. The fact is, it's probably just not going to be CIT. So you go back again to the Drexel-Burnham argument that this is all done, we're all toast here, this is a 100-year-old institution. My God, the sky is falling. If the sky was falling, you wouldn't see the futures doing what you're doing. You wouldn't see really I'm not sure which institutions will step up for which small companies, but there will be money there, and the Obama administration understands the importance not only of the small business, but I think you got to come to the aid of the consumer. I disagreed with giving the $25 billion to all these big guys all along. I think you have to feed the bottom of the pyramid, make everyone healthy on the bottom.
All right, well, hopefully they're going to start working on that. Lloyd and Jordan, gentlemen, thank you very much.